tea writer and educator, and I'm here to help you learn more about tea. I used to do interviews here on my channel regularly, and I thought it was time for me to get back to that. So today I'm sharing an interview with Mona, who owns Teawala. It's a really great tea company. She sources amazing teas, and she's had some really wonderful tea travel experiences. So I'm going to ask her some questions about her tea journey. I hope that you enjoy it. Hey.
Hi, Nicole. How are you?
Good, how's it going?
Good, thank you. Sorry to keep you waiting.
No worries, no worries. So first I'm curious, what kind of brought you to tea? It's always interesting to hear everybody's perspectives on kind of how they got interested in tea.
Yeah, so growing up in Hong Kong, and I'm also ethnically Indian, tea has kind of always been in the background, but it only moved to the foreground of my life after graduating from college. So that was in 2013. So it wasn't until I moved to America, ironically, that tea became a bigger part of my life. I was actually just searching for an internship, and I wound up interning at a tea company in the local LA area called Art of Tea. And through that internship, I got to learn about tea, taste a lot of different varieties of tea on a daily basis. And I was just really fascinated and inspired by the world of tea. Up until then, I'd probably been drinking just simple things like masala chai at home, like very sugary, very milky, Lipton tea bags, and things like pu'er and things with dim sum here. And I was drinking a lot of tea. I think it was Teawala actually, for like prepping for finals. So up until then, that had been kind of my regular tea drinking habits. And I was just amazed by how many varieties of tea there actually are outside of those, and also by the fact that they all come from one plant, the Camellia sinensis, which you are familiar with.
Definitely, yeah. That's definitely, I think, for everybody, like once you discover that, it like opens up this whole world that you didn't know even existed.
Yes, exactly.
Definitely. And I know you have done quite a bit of traveling to tea countries. Was that before or after you started Teawala?
So that was actually before I started Teawala as a company. So in 2018, I spent some time here and there traveling to tea farms. Up until then, I had worked in the tea industry, and I was actually taking a break from tea, but I somehow wound up finding myself back into tea at the tea farms at the source. So I started by volunteering on a white tea farm in Fujian, in a region called Zhenghe, so pretty close to Wuyishan. And I just really loved the experience. I spent, I didn't spend too long there just because I was working part-time in other jobs, odd jobs here and there. And so I think it was about a week and a half. And that experience was just really awesome to me because I got to physically see the plant at the tea farm, pick the tea plant, and then help to process the tea leaves into finished tea. So things like withering the tea leaves onto bamboo racks, sorting the tea leaves together with the tea aunties, and just kind of living and breathing the tea farm life, waking up early in the morning, having breakfast with everyone, and going to sleep, and doing the same thing over the next day. So it was really awesome. Yeah, thank you. And then I wound up going to a few other tea regions that year. So I went to Darjeeling, which I planned with a friend also who was into tea. And then I went to Yunnan as well. And then finally to Taiwan in that year. And the following year, I visited Sri Lanka. So each time staying on a different tea farm and kind of witnessing the process and experiencing it with my own hands as well. I tried as best as possible to stay on the tea farms for a few nights, and physically experiencing the way of processing tea, sharing meals with tea families, just immersing myself as much as possible. And until that point, it was really just a fun learning experience for myself. And I had a WordPress blog, which I started, and my Instagram page. So I was just sharing my tea farm experiences up on the blog and up on Instagram for friends and followers to see. And then I only started Teawala as an actual company in 2019. So the following year.
Wow, that's quite a journey. Those are all
Yeah.
the things that I've definitely dreamed of visiting. I think especially for anybody who's really into tea, I think it's one thing to like read about it or see YouTube videos, but it's another to really experience it yourself in person.
Yeah, it's really awesome. I really, really recommend it. It just really deepens the connection with tea and kind of puts things into perspective. Like things just kind of click. Stuff that I've read in books, things that I've learned from different people, visiting the farms and witnessing the process, and it just kind of connects all the dots in a really special way.
It's amazing. And I know you started Teawala, and I've had the pleasure of trying some of your teas. I really especially loved your Bayonne.
Yes.
And so are the teas that you sell, are they from the tea farms that you visited in your travels?
Yeah, so I do tea a little bit differently. I only source teas directly from farms that I've physically visited, hence the small collection. So every single tea that is on Teawala is from a farm that I've been to, that I've met the either tea producers or farmers of. And that way I can really share the story. I really understand the tea, and dedicate the space for kind of appreciating the beauty behind each tea. I think that each tea has hidden, like just a hidden world of culture, history, stories, significance behind them. So being able to share that, having been to each farm, is really special to me.
Definitely. And I really like that you have like just a curated collection, that it's not just like trying to sell every tea there is, that it's all just
Yeah.
really have that connection with. I really appreciate it.
Yes. Thank you. Yeah, it's kind of just like, here's where I've traveled to, and here are the producers that I really love, and I want to just share their creations and their stories.
It's great. And I know you also recently released a tea tasting journal as well as a course on tasting tea. Can you talk a bit more about that?
Yeah, so in 2000, actually just right before the pandemic, I started working on creating an online tea course. So prior to that, I had been doing tea tastings around Hong Kong. And as you probably experience yourself, people have just so many questions about tea, from like just X, Y, and Z, just everything you can imagine. And so I wanted to just create an area where I can just put together kind of an organized space of the different tea informations, tips and guides that I thought would be helpful for people. And so I started asking people what it was that they were most interested in learning about tea, so that I wouldn't just put everything out there, try to keep it focused, and meaningful for people. And it seems that people were mostly struggling with tasting tea. So how to, when you're tasting a tea, like how to experience a tea fully, and then how to describe that experience to others. And so I geared the course around that. So the course is called Taste Tea Like a Professional. It's like a 9-chapter online pre-recorded course with lots of great PDFs and quizzes as well included. And the aim of the course is to get you, by the end of it, confident in your tea tasting skills and more familiar with the different types of teas and the terroir and the regions, cultivars, things like that for each tea. So it's the beginning of the course goes into more general things. So tea categories, tasting tips, how to evaluate tea, and finally some brewing tips. And then it goes into categories of tea. So white tea starts with white tea, then goes into green tea, oolong tea, black tea, and finally pu'er. So that's a little bit about the online course. it's been really awesome, just connecting with people around the world through the course. So I do like a welcome call with my students. I sometimes offer group calls here and there just to have extra classes or guidance with tasting. So it's been really nice to connect with tea students around the world through that. I've really enjoyed that. And the tea tasting journal was kind of a spin-off from the course. So one of the first things I created for the course was a PDF, which is basically like a template, a tea tasting template. So whenever you're tasting a tea, you could fill in the sheet. So I created it purely just for my students because I thought it would be helpful for them to have something to take down notes on. So just like what tea you're drinking, where it comes from, what harvest, and then quite a bit about like aroma, tasting notes, the liqueur color, the texture, aftertaste, things like that, all the different things you want to pay attention to when drinking a tea. And a little area for, because for me, I really love to draw. So I just had put a little box for people to draw their tea leaves in if they wish to. I think it's a nice way to record the experience. So anyway, I got really good feedback on that. People found it really helpful. Probably one of the highlights, I think, for quite a lot of people in the course. And so from that, I just decided to turn it into a full-blown journal, got them printed, and now offer it to everybody outside of the course as well on the website.
That's awesome. I really like having a sheet like that definitely helps, especially when you first get into tea, to at least kind of know what you're looking for in the first place. But I also really love that you included a box for drawing the teas. That's not something most of those sheets, like they kind of take themselves too seriously sometimes. But I like that it's just like a fun way to like express yourself and remember the tea.
Exactly.
It almost kind of reminded me of like in grammar school, I would be like in science lab and they would like make us draw whatever you see under the microscope.
Yeah.
But I always loved that part of science lab. So it was like, really, it just brought back that fun memory for me when I saw that in there.
Oh, that's sweet. Yeah.
Awesome. If somebody is, say, just starting to get their toes wet in the world of tea, what are some things that you would give them as advice for getting started?
I think with tea, because there are just so many kinds of teas out there, there's like hundreds of tea kinds, probably more, it can be overwhelming. And it also can put quite a dent in your wallet if you don't do it correctly. So I would recommend first, like trying a lot of teas, but making sure like wherever you buy them from, you can try samples so that you just get the experience of tasting the tea, because you might not like a tea, or it might just be a tea that you don't end up drinking a lot of. So getting samples wherever you can would be my advice, definitely. And I think maybe getting like a broad spectrum of tea, so trying a little bit of everything. So like try a few white teas, a few green teas, a few oolongs, blacks, and pu'ers, and then once you are familiar with kind of like the overall world of tea in terms of like flavor spectrums, maybe dive in to each category and kind of focus on each category at a regular times, like maybe months at a time. That way you can kind of compare different teas within a category and feel the subtle differences and the nuances within those categories.
Definitely. That's really similar to the advice I give a lot of the time.
Yeah.
No matter what, you're definitely going to have like what I call tuition tea, that like you buy it and you learn from it. It may not be the best tea in the world, but it's going to teach you something.
Yeah, exactly.
Definitely. Let me see. What is your favorite way to brew tea? Whether it's, if you're serving a group or if it's just you on your own at home.
Yeah, so I typically brew Kung Fu style. I have my set with me here. So Gaiwan, Kung Dao Bei, and a little cup. Just a simple Kung Fu setup. Yeah, I really like brewing Kung Fu style for myself and also for when I'm brewing for friends or guests. It's just especially if I'm drinking Chinese and Taiwanese teas, I think it's the best most optimum way to brew the teas. You get all of the different sides of the tea kind of come out as you brew it, since you can brew them like 6 to 10 to 15 times, depending on the tea. So it's kind of a fun journey that the tea brings you on. And I think it also facilitates nice conversation when you're sitting with a group, just kind of brewing. I find the action of brewing quite therapeutic as well. And with Gong Fu style, since everything's done in quite small quantities, you find yourself kind of moving. Your hands are constantly moving, which I quite enjoy as well.
Definitely. I really enjoyed that about Gong Fu. It definitely kind of takes your mind out of everything except for the tea.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Focus on the tea. I do also like brewing. So if I'm like working, I will normally brew in a big infuser mug, just so that I can still get some nice tea while also saving time. But when I do have the time, I will definitely brew Gong Fu style.
Definitely. Let me see, I'm trying to think. For Teawala, I know you're a fairly new business, but it does seem like you're off to a really good start. I definitely see a lot of my friends on Instagram talking about your company, which is great to see. What are kind of some of your goals and hopes for the future?
Yeah, so I mean, it's been really, really amazing. I think the Instagram tea community, online tea community, is really just one of the best communities, really supportive, really embracing, very welcoming. So I really loved connecting, especially during the pandemic. I spent a lot of time on Instagram chatting with fellow tea people. And that has been a really nice experience for me, just having that kind of moral support. Other people going through things in the industry as well, and then also tea bloggers like yourself. That's been really nice. In terms of future steps, I've been doing a lot of virtual tea tastings recently in the last year or two, in lieu of in-person tea tasting. So basically, I ship out the tea to people in various cities. They could be like a group of friends, a group of family members. It could be like a team within a company looking for team building. And so I ship out the teas, and then we arrange a time to hop on Zoom and then brew the teas together. So kind of a guided brewing and tasting experience. And I share some photos from tea farms, a little bit about each tea. Normally we taste 3 teas in an hour and a half session. So for the future, I would definitely love to continue doing that. And I want to expand my tea collection. So as soon as travel is enabled again, I would love to visit some more tea farms and share my experiences there. That's where I find most of my source of inspiration from, and that's where I learn. That's my personal style of learning, is just going out there and seeing stuff. So I would really love to go back out to the tea origins, meet some new, stay on some new tea farms and learn about different teas and offer those teas through Teawala. And yeah, I mean, maybe, who knows, maybe more online course segments. I'm not sure yet. People are really enjoying this first course I created. So maybe in the future doing more educational tea courses. And another direction, which I had thought of before the pandemic, was actually taking tours out to the tea origins. So I had co-hosted one small group from Latin America with my friend who has a tea company in Mexico. Together, we co-hosted a group through China. So first to Zhejiang province for green tea, so like Longjing, and then up to Fujian to see Wuyishan and the white tea area, and Tieguanying. So yeah, I'd love to do some more of those if the future permits. But yeah, those are some different directions I have in mind. But let's see where it goes.
Definitely. I think guided tours like that are definitely something people would be interested in. I know especially tea people that are just dying to go to visit these places, but it's hard to know where to start, especially if you've never been there. that it's like you can't just show up in China, you know, like you have to kind of
Yeah,
have a plan. So I think
exactly.
having somebody to walk you through that is really helpful.
I mean, and it's not even just like visiting the farms themselves, because that's the main challenge, I would say, is like just finding the right farms. And there's the language barrier as well. Besides that, it's also just stuff like ordering meals. You know, if you've never been to China before, you don't speak Chinese, can't read Chinese, it can be kind of daunting or intimidating to figure out what to eat, transport, things like that. So it's nice to have that be guided. And because I grew up in Hong Kong and I studied Chinese, like Mandarin, from a very young age. I lived in Beijing for almost 2 years, and I worked at a hotel there, actually, by the Great Wall. So that's where I gained fluency in Mandarin. So I really love traveling through China because I almost don't feel like a traveler in a way, because I can speak the language. So it enables me to it kind of opens doors to different experiences outside the typical tourist destinations. And so I love that I can kind of help translate for groups, and explain things, and yeah, just kind of take them through things from a semi-local perspective.
That's awesome. It's definitely, I'm sure, a huge asset to be able to communicate in that way. You know, I love tea, but I definitely wish I had known that I should have taken Chinese in school. I
It's
didn't know
never
I
too
would,
late.
yeah, I didn't know I would love tea as much as I do now. You know, I just took
Yeah,
Spanish because that was, you know, the kind of easy option. But
yeah.
definitely would have served me much better, I think, to learn
Oh,
Mandarin.
that's totally fair. I mean, Mandarin is like the easy, the given option here. So,
Okay.
yeah, so that's usually what we learn. I guess your Spanish equivalent would be Mandarin here. But then because I just always really loved it, I just continued it through college. So, and I had no idea it would help me in tea, because I had been studying Chinese as a language, culture, and history much before tea came around in this way. So that's been a really great kind of background foundation to have going into tea. It definitely helps a lot with understanding the tea names, and just having connections with tea farmers and speaking to them and asking questions and things. It's been very pivotal to my tea journey. So I would definitely recommend it, even if it's just, beginners Mandarin. I think people will always appreciate the effort that you put in to learn their language. So just simple Mandarin to start with, I think, will be helpful.
Definitely. I know this is a really tough question for any tea drinker, but I always have to ask, do you have a favorite tea?
Favorite?
Yeah.
I knew it was coming. I prepared myself. No, I drink quite a wide variety of teas. I would say I mostly drink so I like to vary. I typically vary what I'm drinking based on my mood and the season. So like randomly recently, this is not really a tea I drink often, but I suddenly have been having like chai cravings. So I've just been cooking chai over the stove. I think because it's turning autumn pretty soon, so the weather's changing here. So that's just an example of like how the weather has dictated what I'm drinking. But in general, I would say I mostly drink oolongs and white teas. So typically Taiwanese oolongs, like High Mountain oolongs. I have a milk oolong that I really love. It's a Jinshuan cultivar tea. And so I drink those quite often, and baozhong as well. So more like greenish oolong teas from Taiwan. And I would say like the tea that stands out to me that I really love, from the bottom of my heart, is the white peony. So the one that you mentioned, because A, it's a fantastic tea. It's just very like powerfully aromatic. And B, it just brings me back to the tea farms, gives me a lot of nostalgia, just the different aromas. So as soon as I brew it and I can smell the white peony, it just takes me back to the tea farm. So I definitely have a sentimental attachment to that tea as well.
I can definitely see that. That tea, I'll link in the description my review of that by Mudan. It was really just so, so good. I definitely don't blame you for liking that one as much as you do.
Yeah, thank you. It was that tea for me, like, because when I was on the white tea farm, I was drinking lots of their different white teas, and I really liked all of their white teas, but that one in particular, which is Mudanwang, it's the King of Peony grade, which I didn't know at the time. I was just kind of sitting there quietly and drinking whatever teas they were brewing, and that one just immediately just stood out to me. I was like, oh my gosh, what is this tea? It's so good. So yeah, that one is very special to me.
Awesome. And where can everyone find out more about you and Teawala?
So I have my website, so www.thetiwala.com. You can check out the website. I post a lot on Instagram as well, fairly active there. Handle is @Teawala. So the website is good for if you want to place orders. I have a little blog as well I try to be active on. And Instagram is good for keeping up to date with things I'm doing on a daily basis, whether through the feed or mostly through the stories. And I do have a email newsletter as well, which you can sign up for on the website.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for taking the time for this interview. I'll definitely also make sure to link Teawala's website in the description, so that way it's easy for you all to find.
Thank you so much for having me, Nicole. This was
No
really
problem.
nice. Lovely way to start my day. It was really nice speaking with you.
Awesome. Thank you.